Trying to start it. Okay, it looks like we're live. Welcome everyone. Welcome to Tuesday Talks. We'll start at 7:30 promptly. So, and it looks like that's right now. So we'll go ahead and start because we want to start on time and also end on time. So welcome to Tuesday Talks, everyone. Tuesday Talks에 오신 것을 환영합니다. Excited to be here with you today to spend this hour. Thank you for joining us. Today, I am excited to be joined by my wonderful colleagues from Brandeis University, from Emory University, from the University of Rochester, and from Washington University in St. Louis. And today we'll be talking about extracurricular activities in light of COVID-19, in light of the fact that your extracurricular activities are going to look very different from what it has been in the past. So just a few housekeeping things as usual. If this is your first time here, we welcome you. And if you are here again, we're so glad you joined us again. And as you know, we have a Q&A chat box here on Zoom. If you're joining us on YouTube, you can just use a normal YouTube chat box, and want to encourage you to ask your questions along the way and not to ask until the very end, just to make sure that we can try and answer all your questions as the best that we can. And I don't think I introduced myself, but hello, my name is Jung Rock. I'm with Initial View, and we have, I think this is our 7th Tuesday Talks here in Korea. So we're excited. I know many of you are wrapping up school this week. And so I believe this topic will be a lot more pertinent as you think about extracurricular activities to do this summer. 지난번 매주처럼 언제든지 문의하실 거 있으시면 그때그때 물어봐 주세요. 끝까지 기다리시면 혹시 그게 문의사항을 올릴 수가 없으니까 한국말로 쓰셔도 괜찮고요. 그리고 우리 사정관들에게 문의하고 싶은 거 그냥 그때그때 올려주세요. All right, so without further ado, I'll let our special guests introduce themselves. So we'll start off with Erin from the University of Rochester.
Great, thanks so much, Jungha. My name's Erin. I'm a senior counselor for international admissions at the University of Rochester. And so I'll briefly tell you about the University of Rochester and what makes us special as a university. Next slide. So Rochester is located in New York State, and I like to tell students if you want to go to school in New York City, don't come to Rochester because it's not the same place. New York is a big state. Rochester is about 6 hours driving from New York City, or a 1 hour plane ride. And we're magically about 6 hours from every major city in the Northeast: Boston, Washington, DC, Baltimore, Philadelphia. And we're pretty close to Canada, so you can get to Niagara Falls and Toronto really quickly as well. Next slide. And so this is our campus. We're located about 10 minutes from downtown Rochester. And Rochester is a city of about 1 million people. So it's small enough that it's not overwhelming and too busy and too crowded, but it's big enough that it has everything you need, and we're pretty conveniently located. But we have this beautiful campus that's sort of a traditional American campus feel. And when I was in high school and looking at colleges, as soon as I walked on campus at Rochester, I knew it was the place for me. And so I know you can't have that experience right now, but I hope, through research, you can sort of understand the vibe of Rochester. So in addition to this main campus here, we have the Eastman School of Music located downtown. So if you're interested in music performance, you can take classes there. Or if you just play a musical instrument and you're a student at Rochester, you can take lessons over at Eastman. We have a medical school as part of our campus as well, and also a laser lab. So students who are interested in health sciences or engineering sciences have really cool opportunities for research and internships. Next slide. Okay, and there's three things about the university that I think make us pretty unique, and that's our research, our curriculum, and our community. So we are a tier 1 research institution, which really just means we get a lot of funding to do research, and all of our professors are actively engaged. So that's great for you as a student because your professors are, actively working and creating in their fields and bringing that to their classes. And it also gives you a lot of opportunities as an undergraduate student to get involved in research outside of the classroom, whether that's in biology, chemical engineering, or political science or dance. No matter what your major is, you can get involved in research with a professor or doing your own independent research projects. Rochester is really interested in supporting our undergraduate students to get that hands-on experience. The second thing that's really special is our curriculum. So at Rochester, there's no required subjects. We have an open curriculum, which means you have the freedom to study what you love and explore things that you care about, and really not waste your time in classes that you don't like. So with our curriculum, you have that freedom to pursue your passions or maybe find out what your passions are. If you were like me, I was really undecided when I started college, and the curriculum allowed me to explore and take lots of different classes in my first year, just things that sounded interesting to me, and eventually found my passion and could delve into that deeper. And lastly is our community. So we are 29% international at the undergraduate level, which is really high for a US college. And so we have this really great, diverse cultural community. So you will meet other students from Korea, you will meet students from around the world and all 50 different states in the US. So it's this really welcoming place. We have so many different clubs and activities. And because we have such a big international community, we have lots of cultural clubs. One of my favorites, we have a K-pop dance team on campus. So you can either join that or watch their shows. And in addition to being, diverse and multicultural, our community is collaborative. Students are not interested in competing with each other, and our students are passionate. And you'll find that not only do students come to Rochester because they want to be challenged academically and because they're curious and want to learn, but because they have this passion they want to explore outside of the classroom as well. So we're sort of looking for those students who have an interest outside of academics as well, no matter what it is, whether it's juggling or playing soccer, or doing theater, anything. We are interested in those students and how you can add to our campus. So it's just a little bit about the University of Rochester, and I'll hand it over to my colleague Suji at Brandeis.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erin. 여러분 안녕하세요. 이렇게 만나서 반갑습니다. Hi everyone, my name is Suji and I'm one of the assistant directors for undergraduate admissions at Brandeis University. I know this is kind of a strange format since usually we're all on the road and seeing you in person, but thank you so much for joining us this evening to hear a little bit more about our institutions and to hear kind of about how extracurriculars would be viewed during this time of COVID. Next slide. So to give a brief introduction about Brandeis, we are a core value-driven university, and these are the 3 core values that really help shape the Brandeis experience through our students' academics, through the student life perspective as well. And the first is a reverence for learning. Also being a R1 research university, Brandeis is dedicated to not only a broad-based educational experience, but the structures, funding, and talent to develop lifelong learners. The average size of an R1 institution is around 26,000 students. Meanwhile, Brandeis only has 3,600 undergraduate students. This makes us one of the smallest Tier 1 research universities in America. This means that research is not only available to our undergraduate undergraduate students, but this is really available across all the different disciplines. So if you wanted to pursue research in the natural sciences, of course, that research will be available to you, but also this research is available across the arts, across the humanities, across the social sciences. And this version of experiential learning or research is really taken on in many different lenses. And we really encourage our students to take what they've learned in the classroom and really apply it outside of the classroom as well. The second is a cultivation of critical thinking. We embedded in the curriculum of Brandeis is the flexibility to study the intersection of multiple disciplines. And we really encourage students to study these intersections of multiple disciplines. In fact, over half of our students double major at Brandeis. This really comes to show that our students are pursuing fields of interest, no matter how alike or dissimilar they may seem. I've met students who are computer science and English double majors, for example, who have been business and theater arts double majors. So students often think if they have to be a double major at an institution, it always has to be in two fields that seem alike to one another, such as biology and chemistry, but that is definitely not the case. Our students are really pursuing these multiple disciplines, and we have really established creative ways to combine those studies and suit the needs of our students so that they are able to have this interdisciplinary curriculum. And the last is a commitment to repairing the world. Brandeis was founded on the roots of social justice. So it's really common that our students are really passionate about social justice in its many forms, that they are really passionate about not only making their communities a better place, but also making the world a better place, as cheesy as that may sound. And like I mentioned, this form of social justice is really taken on in many different lenses, whether if a student wants to raise awareness about a particular issue that they're passionate about, or maybe they are walking around having students sign a petition for a cause that they want students to be more aware about, or maybe they're fundraising for maybe they're doing a fundraiser as well for a group or an organization that they are really passionate about. Embedded in the Brandeis campus culture is this passion for enacting positive social change and willingness to challenge the status quo. So we may build more than just an inclusive world around us, and this is a common theme among all of our student body. And so these are the three values that really is part of the Brandeis community and the culture, and really is universal across the board. Next slide. And you see up here kind of some basic numbers about Brandeis. Like I mentioned, we have about 3,600 undergraduate students, and looking more deeply into what is composed of those 3,600 undergraduate students. 29% of our domestic students identify as a student of color, and about 21% of our students are international students. And so we really attract students from all over the world, not only just in the country, but we have over 100 countries represented as well on our campus. Although community service is not a requirement for our students log about 60,000 hours of community service work each year. And so this is really work that students are doing usually within our Waltham community that we're a part of, or the greater Boston community that we're a part of. Our students are really dedicated, whether if it's through our largest student organization called the Waltham Group, where you go out into the town that we're a part of and volunteer at a different site that interests you, or maybe you yourself want to take on a new volunteer or community service project in the city of Boston. And since Boston is so accessible for us, you can do that right at your fingertips as well. We have 19 Division III varsity sports teams and one D1 team, and we have over 250 student-run organizations. And so students are really being involved outside of the classroom as well. We want students who not only want that academic challenge and that academic rigor, but also students who want to be part of this small inclusive community. And so we really want students who outside of their classes, they want to be a part of one of our maybe be part of the debate team, or maybe they want to be part of a club or intramural sport, or maybe they want to create their own club that they're really passionate about, but maybe it's a club that hasn't been established just yet. We really want students, and that's kind of what we look for. That's one thing we look for in the application process as well, are students who want to be part of this really dynamic community of scholars, but also students who want to be part of a tight-knit community. Next slide. And next, we love talking about this post-graduation placement rate and kind of what your options are for internships as well while you're a student at Brandeis. So 6 months after students graduate from Brandeis, the Hyatt Career Center, and I'll use those two terms interchangeably, Hyatt and the Career Center, they send out a survey to the most recent graduating class that asks them a few questions. The first question is, are you employed? Are you attending graduate school anywhere? Are you doing a fellowship or doing volunteer service somewhere? And if yes, how, and if yes, are you happy with where you ended up? And if students said, yes, I do have a job, or yes, I am doing a fellowship of some sort, but no, I'm not very happy, then students were not accounted for in this placement rate. And so this is the placement rate specifically for international students who graduated in 2019. We had about a 70% response rate. So 99% of those students said, yes, I have a job, or I'm in graduate school, or I'm doing volunteer service somewhere. And yes, I am really happy with where I ended up. And you can see the breakdown right here. About half of our students go straight into graduate school. Another 44% of them go into a full-time position, and about 2% of them are engaged in fellowships of travel or volunteer somewhere around the world. So Hyatt not only makes sure that students are finding these post-graduation opportunities, but they're really making sure that students are happy with where they end up. And on average, you see up here as well, the average number of internships completed by Brandeis students is around 3 internships. And so Hyatt makes sure that students are really obtaining this real world experience outside of their academics, whether if it's in an industry that students may be interested in, or in an industry that students know that they really want to pursue after they graduate from Brandeis. Hyatt really emphasizes this real world experiential learning opportunity, and they really make sure that students are finding the right internship, and they are all about finding that fit for students and their internships. And if you recall a little earlier, I said we have about 3,600 undergraduate students, but we have our online job board where students are able to sign up or apply for these different internship and job opportunities. And this actually has over 40,000 different opportunities available for our students. So certainly a lot more internship and job opportunities available than we have students. So students always feel like they have a lot of resources and opportunities to really explore different career fields or try out different internships if they would like to. I didn't mention, or I briefly mentioned this before, but I think it's important to mention as well that we are located just outside of the city of Boston. Boston is really America's college town. In the greater Boston area, there are over 30 different colleges, universities, and institutions. So you are really joining a community, the greater Boston community of scholars, and a really vibrant community as well. I believe it's about 1/3 or 1/4 of the greater Boston population is of college students. And so you are really surrounded by other college students. Your college ID will not only get you into museums for free or at a discounted rate, but there are always shows, events, or maybe you can get into restaurants and they have special deals for college students as well. So I think being a college student in the greater Boston area really has its benefits, not only for the internship opportunities, but also being able to meet other students from around the world as well. Even though you will be going to school somewhere if you go to school somewhere in the greater Boston area, you probably will have some classmates or some friends that also go to school somewhere in the area as well. So it always has that sense of having someone that is familiar from where you come from, or having a friend from home be right in your next door, for example. And that is just kind of a brief overview about Brandeis. I'm going to hand it over to one of my colleagues to, I believe it might be Scott. Yes.
I always forget the microphone. Good evening there in Korea. Good morning from Atlanta. This is a shot of the city where I am at the moment. Welcome. Glad to be with you always to chat with students and families. I'm in my 33rd year at Emory, and I'm always delighted to share the Emory story where I can. And I want to be respectful of all the questions I know you're going to have for all of us. So I'm going to make some quick points about Emory and remind you that our social media platforms are robust. Like all of my colleague schools here, you can get so much information online, videos, connecting with our students. So I will not attempt to do any of that this evening, rather just point out some big things about Emory that we think you should keep in mind as you're searching for a college. And then we're here and happy to help you with questions as you move along the way over the next several months. I will say, William Cannon in my office is actually our representative who travels in Korea and reads those applications, but he is on a well-deserved vacation at the moment, and I am filling in, but to give you some confidence, I did read the applicants of Korea for 20 of my 33 years at Emory, so it's one of my favorite places, and I know it well, so I will fill in as best I can this morning. And it's always nice to touch base with you from Atlanta, particularly if you live in Seoul, because we have such rich ties to the people of Korea here at Emory and in Atlanta. You may not realize that your national anthem was written by an Emory graduate, our first student, and our first overseas student in 1890 came from Korea. And later on, he was a very prominent leader in your country and wrote the national anthem. So there's some trivia. Emory in Korea. And then, of course, Atlanta, heavy, important corporate and government ties to the people of Korea. Your major corporations are well represented in this city. One of the largest Korean communities in America live here in Metro Atlanta. And it's one of the reasons every day there are direct flights between Atlanta and Seoul to connect our people. So we know Korea, you have discovered Emory long ago, and it's a happy relationship, we think. But let me touch briefly on the things about Emory we want you to remember. They're very big themes, and I hope it will encourage you to do a little bit more research on what we do here at Emory. The first of the 3 points, liberal arts. Emory, like my colleagues here, rooted in the American learning traditions of broad thinking. We want you to study very broadly the first 2 years at least at Emory. You got to take a little bit of everything as you're moving towards that 3rd year, junior year, when you declare a major. At that time, you can stay in one of 90 programs of study within Emory or move to an upper division that 3rd year, which would include the nursing school and our business school, but not out of secondary school. Coming out of high school, as we call it here, you just apply generally to Emory. You're not applying to majors or schools. And then if admitted, study broadly and begin narrowing that 3rd year. What is a little bit different about Emory in that regard is we have two front doors, if you will, to the university when you're coming out of high school. Emory's original campus, about 50 kilometers outside the city, today called Oxford College of Emory. That's a starting point. It's only the first 2 years, and you continue to the Atlanta campus where I am today, beginning that 3rd year. And then in Atlanta, we have what we call Emory College, and that's the 4-year liberal arts division, and that's in Atlanta. Regardless of where you start, it's all one university, all one academic program. History has given Emory 2 campuses. We were moved to Atlanta around 1915 when the then mayor of the city thought if Atlanta had any opportunity to grow into a bigger city, it would need more colleges and universities. He helped move Emory, turn it into a university, and then history has given us our original campus, which we keep small, about 1,000 students only, all of whom are first, second year. So it's a much more intimate experience in a smaller town. great leadership opportunity. But when you apply with common or coalition application, you check the box, which campus, both campuses, however you wish to apply to the university. And embedded in that liberal arts, nursing, business programs we have, like my colleagues, Tier 1 research university. And that means America's most powerful universities for creation of knowledge, for learning, for outreach, for public service, public good. And at Emory, like my colleagues, research is everywhere. And you can see more online, but the reason we love you to put research alongside liberal arts study is research teaches you how to ask questions, why we ask questions, how we write questions, what to do with data. And the quantitative science is well developed at Emory in all programs. Even if you were to come to Emory and study literature with a poetry concentration, analytics, data analysis will be a rich part of your curriculum. But research is everywhere, and it's across all sorts of different areas, from former US President Jimmy Carter's Policy Center is here at Emory, the Carter Center. You can do policy governmental research, or the United States Centers for Disease Control are located at Emory as well. So from policy to science, you can do it all. The other thing we want you to remember about Emory is both campuses are very residential, though we're in a big city. Almost everyone lives on these two campuses, and the Atlanta campus is not in the skyscraper area of the city. It's tucked away about 7 kilometers into a really residential, beautiful park-like neighborhood where you live. So it's big city resource, but very easy daily living. You're all here together, and this is a shot of a picture of one of the buildings on the main lawn. And then the third thing I want you to remember about Emory and research more is the great city we call home, Atlanta. Like Seoul, if you're living there, it is an Olympic city. In '96, we hosted those games, as you all did, I believe in '88, the summer games. And that means it's a city where people have come from all over the world to make contributions. About 15% of Metro Atlanta are citizens who've come from other countries to live and to work and to contribute here. Like Emory, a very diverse community. 20% of our students are from overseas, from about 100 different countries. But the city is a young one. It has a young spirit. The average age is about 34, which if you're 18, that sounds ancient, I realize. But if you look at American cities, that's actually pretty young, as the census data tell us. And it's also a collaborative place. You most often find that in the relationship between Emory and Georgia Tech, where we have shared programs, shared degrees. It's a creative city. You may not know it stands equal to New York and Los Angeles for television and film production. And of course, it's a big place of commerce, home to the world's busiest airport. People come from everywhere every day to visit and to make contributions, or at least they did before COVID-19 and all the airlines stopped flying, but that will return one day, of course. And lastly, the tone of Emory is one that's caring and concerned. Our students often tell us they feel supported by one another. It's a very collaborative place, not where you're competing in an ugly way with one another, but rather you're helping one another get to where you want to each be. And that matches nicely Emory's motto from long ago, the wise heart seeks knowledge. Borrowed from ancient text, but as relevant today as ever. And that means if you're an educated person, we believe you've got obligations to everybody and everything around you to make life better. And we're going to ask you to do that if you were to come to Emory. But happy to chat more later, and hopefully you'll research Emory after this short morning or evening program. And now I'm going to hand it off to my friend Emily from Washington University.
I too almost forgot the mute button there. Sorry. Thank you, Scott. And good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Emily Almas. I am the Assistant Assistant Vice Provost and Director of Admissions at Washington University in St. Louis. And I have three things as well to share with you about WashU, which is what shorthand slang for what we call Washington University in St. Louis sometimes. Then I know you're all really eager to hear more about extracurriculars in the time of COVID-19 and get your questions answered as well. I'm going to start. We too are actually an Olympic city. St. Louis was the host of the 1904 Olympics, and actually those Olympics took place in part on the campus of Washington University. And I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about St. Louis. It's in the name of our university. It's also something that's very important to know about the Washington University experience. We are located in a metropolitan area of almost 3 million people, so a medium-sized city for the United States, and certainly a place where students can really take advantage of opportunities to be involved, to be engaged on and off campus. Just across the street from our campus, you'll find what we call Forest Park, which has the zoo and art museum and a history museum and wonderful jogging trails, and just a great piece of WashU student life, certainly, but of St. Louis especially. And St. Louis is a really accessible city. So as a student, you can take our above ground subway downtown and catch a Major League Baseball game when they're in season, or walk around the Arch, which has historical significance to our city in the United States as well. Lots to do in St. Louis. It's a great place to be a student, and it's a great backdrop and partner to the education that you'll receive at Washington University in St. Louis. So want to start with where we're located. It's in our name, and certainly a great place to be as well. We are, if you're looking at a map of the United States of America, sort of smack in the middle, if you can imagine that, about 4 hours by car southwest of Chicago, the city of Chicago, if you know where that is on a map. So just to give you a little geographic location there as well. So the first thing, St. Louis, a great place to be a student, and a great place to be a university student at WashU for sure. The second thing I want to mention and leave you with this evening is our academic breadth and depth. So there are 5 different colleges or programs as a student that you can choose from. If you apply to Washington University, you are admitted and enroll in one of the 5 schools. So the College of Architecture, the College of Art, the McKelvey School of Engineering, our Olin School of Business, or our College of Arts and Sciences. And the great thing about WashU is you enter as a student in one of those different colleges or our divisions, but you're going to take classes across the curriculum. So I think you'll hear a common theme from all of our institutions today, talking about the liberal arts, talking about breadth of exposure to different ways of studying and learning and thinking. And that's really important in a college experience as you become a well-rounded, educated person. And so certainly at WashU, I think our academic program and structure facilitates that. And you pick one of these different schools to enter the university, but then you'll take classes across the curriculum. It's very flexible. And most students take classes in multiple different colleges while they're at Washington University. And then the last thing I want to leave you with is a little bit of an understanding about the student culture and student life and how students experience their time with us. So we have a little more than 7,000 students, undergraduate students at Washington University. All first-year students live together in a section of campus we call the South 40. And I mention that because it sort of exemplifies the spirit of campus. Washington University, WashU, is a place where students are collaborative, where they care very much about one another. And we have over there on the South 40 a plaque that commemorates our unofficial motto. It was first said by a former member of our academic staff several years ago, and that is that we each know every student by name and by story. And what we mean by that is that we don't just get to know each other by name or where someone's from or what they're studying. We get to know who they really are, what they care about, what's important to them. and what's of significance to them, their story, who they are. And that really, I think, speaks to the kind of culture and environment you'll find at Washington University. People care about one another and they genuinely want to know more about each other. So whether students are doing research with faculty members, we're all R1 research universities with you here today, whether that is an internship at the medical school, or it is participation in a club or activity, whatever it might be that a student's doing, that they and their peers and the faculty and staff and alumni of the university care very deeply to get to know one another. So a strong community environment. So St. Louis, a little bit about our academic flexibility and depth and the campus culture. 3 quick things to whet your appetite about Washington University. But now I'm going to turn it over to Erin, and we'll get started digging a little deeper into this question of extracurricular activities in the time of COVID-19.
So, sort of the first thing we wanted to talk about when discussing the pandemic and how it's affected everyone's lives is that you're not alone, right? We're all going through this together. And so the first thing here it says is admissions offices want to help you, right? And I hope that by attending these Tuesday talks with Initial View and seeing so many different colleges and so many different admissions officers like us here today, that you see that we are real people behind these sort of like big names or, you know, maybe intimidating processes. But we're here and we're real people and we're going through this too. So just sort of a reminder that we want to help you. We're not trying to make things more difficult, right? And I think you'll see this year that lots of colleges are changing part of their processes in order to help you. So just sort of that reminder that, you know, we're not these scary entities, we're not robots, but we're real people here to help you. So if you have questions or if you need help or you're not sure what to do, reach out to an admissions officer at a school. That's what we're here for. Second thing to keep in mind is that students from around the world are going through the same thing, right? This is not local to Seoul or Korea or Asia, but really every single high school student all across the world, all across the United States, is really going through the same thing. So tests being canceled, schools going virtual, all of your club activities being gone. So I think it's just reminds you that your application will not look different, right? Everyone's applications will look like yours. Well, you'll have, you know, maybe 3 years of really great activities, and then all of a sudden, you know, you don't have that. So just keeping in mind that you are not at a disadvantage, that everyone is in the same situation. And lastly, we just want to emphasize that taking care of yourself is the most important thing right now. We want you to stay safe and healthy. We want you to be thinking about your physical health and your emotional well-being and your mental health, and really taking the time that you need during this time to maybe disconnect from things you normally do or take a break, because we understand that this is difficult for everybody, and we really want you to be taking care of yourself so that, you know, when you do graduate and when you do come to college, that you're ready to be a successful student on our campuses. And so I'll hand it over to Suji to talk about our next topic.
Thanks, Erin. And kind of in addition to what Erin was talking about, in terms of timeline realignment, I know that there are certain times of the year, especially between junior and senior year, when you say, okay, the spring is usually when I will take the SAT or the ACT, the summer is usually, maybe I'll take a, if I didn't do so well the first time around, maybe I'll try to take a second exam the second time around. But with a lot of these examinations being canceled or postponed, of course, there are some adjustments that need to be made to this timeline. And I will say, like Erin mentioned, so many institutions are now trying to adapt and are accommodating to these changes, especially when it comes to standardized testing. So our biggest piece of advice, or one of our biggest pieces of advice, is do your research on different institutions, maybe see what recent policies have come out. We made a joke during our call in preparation for this meeting that every day there is something new. And that is really true. Every day there's a new institution or a new policy that has come out for a particular school, where maybe they are going test optional, or maybe they decided XYZ, something new. So always do your research and find the exact details of different test optional policies. Another important part would be to start your personal essays earlier. This gives you opportunity to be more thoughtful, to find and draft multiple drafts, what you would want to write about, what you really want the admissions committee to learn about. As Erin mentioned, we are humans behind reading. We are humans who are reading your application. So hopefully this gives you, it makes it feel less intimidating. We want to get to know you beyond what your transcript shows us, beyond what your letters of recommendation show us. We really want to learn something about you that we would not be able to see elsewhere in the application. And that's kind of what we look for in the essay, and in our supplemental essays as well. And of course, the opportunity to interview. This is a great time to not only prepare for, but also to have an interview with someone like Initial View, to also have the admissions officers get to know you a little bit more. Interviewing is a great way to highlight some activities, or to have us understand your academic interests a little bit more deeply. And these interviews, like my colleagues will all probably agree on, are a great way for admissions officers to really get to know students and to really put a face to the name, and to really know students beyond their application. And so kind of talking about this timeline realignment, I know it can feel very intimidating. I know that it can feel, we understand that it can feel, you can feel very lost in the midst of everything, but know that, like Erin mentioned, we are, admissions officers want to help you, which is why our institutions are also being flexible, but I would say the biggest pieces of advice are to continue doing your research on different institutions, focus on that personal essay or on your school projects, and lastly, research the opportunity to interview, especially with our friends with Initial View. And I believe next Scott will be talking about the holistic review process.
Thank you, Susie. And I often have thought in the last couple of months, as complicated as it may seem, U.S. college admission from afar, it seems complicated, doesn't it? But I think the way we all evaluate candidates, what we call here in the U.S. holistic admission, we look at everything, that may make this process easier. I know you may not believe it at the moment, with everything you must prepare for these applications, but I think in the review, it maybe helps myself and my colleagues the ease of looking at everything you've ever done and that you hope to do at university actually helps us push COVID-19 to the side, because how we review applications is really in spirit not changing. We may be changing test deadlines or being test optional, sort of policy driven procedural things, but at the heart of the US review at this level of education, the schools represented this morning, everything about you as a human being is considered. And that actually helps create this ability to shift the focus on all these different themes. So right now, the topic this morning is, what am I going to do about extracurriculars? Well, we understand that's more difficult to do right now. So it shifts our focus onto other things and other areas where we can find exactly what we were looking for with extracurriculars. And that's basically personality, commitment, and perspective. We all read things, we all do things, we all live amongst people to gain newer, broader perspectives. And that's all we're trying to figure out with your potential as you are looking at our campuses and probably countless others. But holistic admission gives us flexibility, and it gives you flexibility of voice. You can tell us whatever you think we need to know. You can write broadly. Your recommendations will touch on these themes that we're searching for. So though extracurriculars may be challenging at the moment, tell us more in extra writing samples. Maybe you want to add an extra note to the application as we read them. Your teacher recommendations and other recommendations will tell us a lot about potential and perspective and your preparation for U.S. higher education. But at the end of the day, your sharing of what you hope to accomplish, your teachers will tell us how prepared you are, and just what's on your mind as a student, as a young person, your hopes with education. I think my colleagues will agree, we can get at that from so many angles in your applications, not just extracurriculars. So I hope as you apply to our campuses and others, you'll have confidence in U.S. Holistic review, because not one thing ever usually determines an admission decision, countless items. And by the way, we all probably read in sort of a committee format of one kind or another, and that means our colleagues from different backgrounds than us this morning are jumping into your applications and offering their life perspectives on how you're presenting. So all of this to say, rarely does one item determine an admission decision, and holistic admission, the way we all practice it, may very well save the day when we're all challenged with COVID-19, because in spirit and philosophy, we'll read files with the joy for young people as we've always read files. And we'll all get through this together, I think. And I believe now is it Emily?
Great. Thank you so much, Scott. And I know I'm sure we're getting some great questions, so we want to make sure to leave time for that. So we're going to touch upon some items quickly, but then be sure to leave some time for your questions so we can answer them as well. So what should you do, right? You're in this moment and maybe you can't engage in the activities or extracurricular work or research or whatever it might be that you had anticipated you would be engaging in during this time period. What should you do and how should you do it? The first thing to do is to pause and sort of reflect on this as an opportunity to think about your own interests. What makes you happy? What are you excited to learn more about? And how can you use that to drive your behavior? So you might decide this is the right time to learn something new. Maybe you want to take an online class, whether for credit or informally. Maybe you want to teach yourself something or use this as an opportunity to explore a new hobby or skill or art. Those are all great ways to pause, reflect on your own development and the things that would uh, sort of meet your own needs and explore them. We want to make sure that you understand that students all across the world, as my colleagues have mentioned, are in a similar boat. So they too are finding all sorts of different opportunities that have been altered and changed. And this is a moment when it's both okay to explore new activities and interests individually or in a self-organized fashion. And it's okay to take a moment to just be a member of your local community and to pause and reflect in this time too. So it's both okay to explore new fields and disciplines, and also fine if this is a moment of pause and reflection for you as well. Sometimes students have questions about the scope of what they're working on, right? Maybe they had a project or opportunity that was involving travel or a different place or experience, and now that's been put on pause, take a moment to think about your local community. There's ways to be engaged and involved right on your same block, perhaps. And certainly you're not expected to do that, but just take a moment to think about what does it mean to be where you are in this moment now, and how you might take advantage of the opportunities you have right at hand, right around you. I think there's one more slide if we want to go to the next slide. So here are some questions just to guide you through thinking about how you might take this opportunity for a change in plans to organize or structure your time yourself. So that might be reading, it might be taking a course, it might mean exploring a new skill or hobby. These are all some ideas, but by no means the only ideas. And they're also things that you could speak about in an interview. For example, an initial view interview, would be an opportunity, or in an essay in your application or elsewhere, to talk about how you explored your own development and self in this moment as well. So here's some questions and thoughts, but we want to get to your current questions and thoughts on this topic. So with that, I'm going to pause and we'll hear about the things that you're interested in this evening.
Wonderful. Thank you all. This has been a great discussion about your respective colleges and also about extracurricular activities. There have been several questions in regards to how extracurricular activities fit in the holistic process. So one specific question in regards to whether or not a student should choose extracurricular activities that are relevant to the major that they are applying to. Is this important? How do you view this?
I will not claim to speak for my colleagues on this point, but I think it's safe to say generally, we don't always link extracurricular interest to what may be a very long life with many careers and different experiences when we're looking holistically at your potential. And I think that's the word to keep underscoring as you head to university. We're very keen on developing your potential. That's all education is. You've got skills and talents. We want to help you develop it. And in that way, when we're looking at extracurriculars, we want to know you as a human being, not as an applicant, not as a file number, but you're a unique person and you like to do things because you like to do them. And that's what we're trying to find, because we're trying to sort out personality and just who you are. You're your own unique DNA. We're trying to just figure that out and how you fit in the life of community and how you'll contribute to our campuses. So I don't personally believe extracurriculars need to be linked to future majors, but obviously if there's something you do well, you do a lot, and it is tied academically, if there's reason why you enjoy doing it, then do it. But don't artificially create a list of activities based on major, because the US way of studying, you may not keep that major. You may change your mind when you get to our campuses, because that's sort of the US way of studying. Let's think broadly before you settle down on something.
Great. Does anyone else want to chime in, or we can go to the next question? Okay. So kind of piggybacking on how Scott ended that answer in regards to, having the flexibility of being able to change your major, there has been a question about whether or not one would have to declare a major when you apply to your respective universities. So in other words, the question is, do I have to declare a major when I apply? If I do not, if I declare undecided, then will that be to my disadvantage?
So I believe it's probably different at each of our institutions, but at Brandeis, you just indicate an academic area of interest on your application. And so you can say you're interested in studying environmental studies, or you're interested in studying studio art, but you're not bound to that major when you matriculate to Brandeis. So all undergraduate students are part of the School of Arts and Sciences. And so we don't have multiple colleges across our university for our undergraduate population. All of our programs are part of the School of Arts and Sciences. So we give students a flexibility. All students, when they start as a first-year student, are actually undeclared. And we give students until the end of their sophomore year to declare a major. But I believe that's probably different at my colleagues' institutions.
It's the same at Rochester.
At Washington University, students need to choose a college when they apply to the university, and we ask for a major, but it is an area of academic interest. It's not, students are not admitted to the major, and then they have flexibility to decide upon a major or even switch colleges or areas of study during their time. Students don't typically declare a major till the end of the second year.
Same for Emory. Third year, we'll talk about majors.
Wonderful. Great. Oh, really interesting question here. And the question is simply, what would a meaningful summer vacation look like? I think a lot can be unpacked here, but I'll open the floor to anyone who wants to take a stab.
So I think what's intriguing to me about this question is that the person who asked it, thank you, whomever you are, used the word meaningful, right? So I'm going to start there and say a meaningful experience is often in the eye of the beholder, and really exploring an opportunity or taking time to explore yourself, right? I don't want this to be framed as you have to go and do something. This can also be an exercise in self-reflection. I think those are, that's a meaningful, to reuse this word that the person who submitted the question used, way of spending one's time. Certainly, especially in the context of a global pandemic, I think students and families may be assessing how one spends time and what that means in the college admissions process. And I just want us to be clear that we are being reassuring in this moment that whatever you may choose to do with your time, if it is either of note to you or it is the result of the circumstances you find yourself in, that is a good use of your time. So that might be exploring yourself, that might be taking advantage of online opportunities or in your local community. It might be a mix of opportunities. I certainly want to elevate paid employment, whether by necessity or opportunity for students as well. So meaningful is engaging in some reflection or activity that sort of represents your interests in development and growth. I don't think there's one specific way to spend a summer vacation, but a great question for sure. And I invite my colleagues to chime in if they want to add anything.
I think one question and related to all this is how does one define extracurricular activities? Are extracurricular activities one that is always involved in trying to enhance your academic interests, or as Emily mentioned, is it having to be related to vocation, or in a situation where one has to take care of maybe a member of the family? Would that be something that one should include in that list of extracurricular activities? If you could maybe speak to that for a few minutes.
It's all of the above, really. So it can be anything from what you would think of as the organized extracurricular activities, whether if it's the debate team from your high school, or maybe you're part of an after-school volunteer club. We understand that not all students have the opportunity to partake in extracurricular activities because maybe they do have to take care of a younger sibling or elderly grandparent. Those are all what we would call extracurricular activities, and colleagues are nodding their heads. So I think we're all in agreement. It is really what you're doing outside of your academics. So I know Emily mentioned looking into community engagement, how you can get involved with your local community. That would also be an extracurricular activity, even if it was an independent project that you decided to pursue yourself.
Great. Well, thank you. This hour has just zoomed by. And so unfortunately, we'll have to wrap it up at this point. But before we say goodbye, I would like to let my colleagues have an opportunity to say any final thoughts and words to our students and parents that have dialed in.
I would just say we wish you well in this search. We're here to support you. And as reference was made earlier, that this process can seem so intimidating. We are human too, and my colleagues, whether they're new to the higher ed or have been at it a long time, what's common to our experience is we enjoy the life of young people learning and growing, and that's not going to change. We're here to continue doing that because, gosh, that's the hope of the world. Young people learning and contributing. So just know we're here for you in that regard.
Hope you stay safe and healthy and that you do have an enjoyable summer. And if you have more questions, feel free to email us directly. And if you want to learn more about any of our schools, I know that Rochester has more virtual information sessions online. So I think one benefit of what's going on right now is there's a lot more information virtually that you can explore maybe while you have some time off this summer.
Definitely great advice so far. Thank you, Initial View, for having us on this talk this week. I would just add there's no one right or wrong way to get to college or university. So embrace who you are and try to seek out opportunities that make you happy and help you grow as a person. And that's the engagement and experiences that we're looking to learn more about you in this process. And we're here and excited to be supportive as well.
I was going to say that same exact thing, Emily. I would say kind of along the same lines, just be genuine, be authentic in the application process. That is really who we want to get to know. There isn't a cookie cutter applicant that we're all looking for. The cookie cutter applicant would be the genuine and authentic you. So just portray that to the best of your abilities in your application. And of course, like my colleagues mentioned, feel free to reach out if you guys have any questions.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I think the main takeaway for me as well is to not fret, to not worry, and to give yourself grace, because all of us here and our colleagues are going to be giving you grace as well, and knowing that this year is going to look different and your application is going to look different from previous years. And also, it actually might be a little bit more stressful thinking that there is no pat answer. There's no 1, 2, 3 formula in what will make you stand out. What makes you stand out, as my colleagues have said, is to know who you are and to pursue what is of interest to you and to grow through that. So all of us here, we wish you the very best, and we wish you a wonderful summer holiday. Please join us again next Tuesday. We will continue this conversation. And as my colleague said, they are here because they want to connect with you despite the limitations we have. And we want to continue this conversation and answer your questions. You can always re-watch or watch it for the first time on YouTube or on our website, initialview.com/Tuesday Talks. But it's always more fun to have you ask your questions and to answer your questions real time. So please do join us next Tuesday at 7:30 Korea time. If we did not answer your questions, please do not fret and know that, as my colleague Scott said, all these universities have very robust social media platforms and very robust websites with a lot of information. And if you have specific application questions, you can definitely go to their websites. And also we have all our email addresses here. So please feel free to contact us directly, and we will do our best to answer all your questions during this time. So thank you for joining us. 여기 참석해 주셔서 너무 감사하고요. 다음 주에 또 뵙겠습니다. 안녕히 가세요. Bye.
Bye.